And hello, if you're just joining in and you're watching, hi, welcome. Welcome to an afternoon to talk about immigrant rights and also the work of Mobilize for immigrants. I'm waiting for one more guest, Sophia, to join us here on Instagram, live. She is an attorney, and we're going to be telling you guys more about the work of Mobilize Mobilize for immigrants. So join us. We also streaming live from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and let me see, Twitch and Twitter. Yeah, there we go. Sophia, hi, welcome. I have news for you. I don't think you can join my live stream because you don't have the latest version of the app, it's telling me. So try to see if you can join. It's interesting. I have Priscilla here. Hi, Priscilla on Instagram, but I also have Sophia, who is supposed to join us on Instagram, but we're having a little bit of a hiccup. But she's joining us on Facebook and on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Twitter. So if you guys want to see everybody in action, you should join us there. So welcome, lady Sophia. Would you be able to join us? I don't know what's going on with your phone, honey.
Yes, I'm updating Instagram right now.
Okay, she's updating some stuff, but in the meantime, let me welcome you and tell you a little bit about what's going to happen this afternoon. I'm Aura Vasquez, and I'm a member of Mobilize for Immigrants. We are a group that, in the face of seeing what's happening with immigrants all around this country, came together to lift up some of the struggles happening in places like Florida and everywhere in the country. So as we wait for Sophia to join us here on Instagram, I want to welcome Priscilla. Hi, and welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thanks for having us. And it has been crazy. I mean, it's been crazy for a long time, but I think definitely recently with the laws being passed in Florida, it's definitely given people more of a, like, I don't know what to call it. Maybe for those who haven't been as involved or in touch are realizing how scary it's getting. So social media, there's always that love-hate relationship, obviously, with social media, but I think using this platform to keep community informed and to just use the tools that we have currently to educate and also to bring awareness, but also to learn. I know there's also a lot of misinformation out there, so I'm really glad Cynthia is on here.
Yeah.
She is the immigration lawyer, and I know that a lot of us, we want to learn, we want to amplify. Like I said, there's also a lot of misinformation out there, so it's really hard to immigration is so complicated.
Well, Priscilla, but before you start slicing the cake, we have a piece of the cake here. We're going to talk about the cake in general. But before we start slicing the cake, just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to this work.
Yes. So I was born and raised here in Los Angeles, LA, and my parents came from Mexico, so they were both born in Mexico. I was born here in LA, so daughter of immigrants in an indigenous family. And yeah, so I have three children. I study child development at Cal State Northridge. I have reared three children. And I decided to homeschool my kids, so I've been a full-time grandma for I don't know, like 15 years now, or 14 years. I have a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So I think a lot of it is just when we're talking about the type of work that we do overall. I want people to feel
And yeah, and Priscilla, we're going to talk about the call to action a little later. But I want to also welcome Sophia to the live stream. And she is an attorney. She's from Guatemala. And for folks that are, on Instagram, and or maybe for the folks that are watching on YouTube or on Facebook or on Twitter or even on Twitch right now, you can also join us on Instagram and watch the three of us. Unfortunately, Priscilla couldn't join on the other, platforms. But here we are. But Sophia, welcome, and please share a little bit about who you are.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. So I'm an immigration attorney. I went to school because my mom is from Guatemala, and so I have personal experience seeing how difficult it can be to get to this country, and hearing people say, "Oh, people should do things the right way," and then seeing that, well, there isn't really like a path actually, and so there is no line to get into, so to speak. And I decided that the best way to help was to, learn the system.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know the system, you can't really combat the injustices in it. So I went to law school and I currently practice exclusively with victims of human trafficking, but specifically victims from Central America for the most part, and asylum seekers, refugees, and obviously, my passion is working with people from Guatemala or Honduras, El Salvador, like the triangle countries where we have a lot of immigration coming in.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you so much for everybody that is tuning in. We welcome your questions so much, and you're an important piece of this conversation. So if you want to share any of your thoughts or you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comments, and we'll address them as they come. But the way that we met, and I want to share a little bit about that echo. Yeah, if Sophia, maybe lower your volume as much as you can, and your computer too. Is this better? I think it's still echoey.
It's still echoing?
Let me see. Yeah, lower the volume as much as you can on both. Okay, I don't hear an echo. If you guys don't hear an echo, put a heart in the comments.
Okay.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So the way that we met was really organically, and it was really at a time in history here in the United States where we were called to act and to step up. And Priscilla, maybe you can start a little bit by telling us, this process or how Mobilize for Immigrants came about. And if you are watching this live stream, I encourage you to support our movement and to join us, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. We're like everywhere also. Mobilize the number 4 immigrants. And because we're doing something that is very selfless and is so very necessary right now for immigrants in this country. So share a little bit about, the nuts and bolts about how we got together and what Mobilize for Immigrants is. Yeah. Right. Right. Mhm. Yeah. And make it accessible also for people. So anybody that goes to the website, you can kind of have those resources. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and Priscilla is little bites for all of us. It's a lot of bites, and I want to give maybe an opportunity for Sophia to talk a little bit about it. Yeah, I know little bites because like it's a lot, and I understand, and for people that are watching, I'm sure that maybe if you're an immigrant or you support immigrants or you understand the struggle. There is so much help going on. So Sophia, can you share a little bit about what are some of the things that you see in terms of immigration policy around the country? You mentioned earlier that you mostly specialize on human trafficking, and that's something that we don't really talk about that much. I mean, we oftentimes focus on issues of immigrants, like people coming to this country being documented or being undocumented, or if they work in the fields, or but we don't hear a whole lot about human trafficking. So can you share a little bit about little bites about what is happening in terms of immigration law, and what do you see around the country, and in your experience, what's going on in terms of undocumented folks coming to this country and also being trafficked?
Sure. So actually, yeah, human trafficking is a lot more common than people think. It's unfortunately, it's not something that's very isolated.
Mhm.
So the scary thing is that a lot of times there's situations where oftentimes I see trafficking occur as a result of the person coming to the United States. So
Mhm.
it's not even that they come to the US, so then they're vulnerable and they end up being trafficked. It will be coyotes, the human smugglers, will tell them, okay, I'll loan you the amount that it takes to get to the US. So then you just have to work for me for a little bit. And then the person is stuck. And so in a lot of border states like California, Arizona, and Texas, you have these ranches where more or less there are 10 to 50 people at times just stuck. And the person that is locking them there was responsible for bringing them to the country.
Mhm.
And they don't speak the language. They have no idea what rights they have. They're way too scared to do anything. And also, a lot of the times, these human smugglers, they know their families,
Oh, wow.
because a lot of people, they're coming from the pueblos. They're not coming from, Guatemala City or Mexico City as much. They're coming from smaller places where people know each other.
Mhm.
So telling somebody that, hey, you know what? I'm going to kill your mom if you leave carries a lot of weight because that person almost certainly does actually know where their mom lives and knows their mom. And
Mhm.
that's actually one of the most common threats that I see is that, the person tells me that I'm not even really worried for myself as much as I'm worried for my mom or my sister, or my loved one. And so it's really terrible because that's something that's super you're it's a threat against your loved ones, which is a very effective tactic. There's also a lot of issues with employers that they will sponsor someone's temporary visa. For example, there is a type of visa for agricultural workers that's temporary. They will then sponsor the person and then basically they'll traffic them. They won't pay them the agreed salary. They won't provide them the living conditions they're supposed to. And then they're stuck on a ranch.
Mhm.
And I've actually seen a couple incidents where the person was actually told that they'd be working in the fields, like picking avocados or strawberries, and they were actually forced to work on a marijuana farm. And then because
Mm.
marijuana is federally controlled, the United States government tried to deport the person based off of a controlled substance that at a federal level is prohibited, but at a state level is not. But the issue is more that the person was trafficked.
Mm.
And so but it was very telling that the government was much more interested in placing these victims in deportation proceedings than they were to actually investigate the trafficking. They were much more interested in the mechanisms they could use to get the people out of the country. So it's very telling of the state of the government, and also how I think it goes back to the central point that has been going on for decades, is that, this country values Hispanics' work. They recognize they need Hispanics' work, but they don't want to give us visas. They don't want to give us status. They don't want to give us paths to citizenship or residency. They're really only interested in the labor aspect
Right.
and not the humanitarian.
And I maybe would like to ask you both, and maybe we can have a conversation. And if you guys are watching, welcome. We're having a conversation about immigrant rights, how to organize our coalition, which is called Mobilize for Immigrants, and how we got here, and what are some of the things that we have been advocating for. But I think what has fueled and what kind of brought us together is the latest, more grotesque policies that we see coming from around the country, especially in Florida, Kansas, Texas, where they're making it really hard for immigrants that come to this country without a path, a legal path to to be part of the system, and become undocumented. How this kind of unify us and brought us together. And we did an action, in at the beginning of June for what was going on in Florida. So why don't we talk about, for maybe the folks that are just joining in and they're like, I didn't even know that that's going down in Florida. I thought they had the best, beaches over there. So like, what is going on? So if you can, either or both of you can talk just very briefly about what happened in Florida and why everybody is like up in arms, and why immigrants are exiting that state like no, never seen before.
Sorry, I just wanted to, I don't mean to interrupt. I just see something in the chat that's really important to address. Somebody asked that if Trump or DeSantis became president again, well, Trump again, but if DeSantis won too, if they could eliminate citizenship to those who were born in the US but parents are immigrants. No, that is a violation of the 14th Amendment. Actually, that was something that Trump floated around. He wanted to revoke what's called birthright citizenship. So the United States has the concept of, if you were born within the United States, you receive citizenship. There is no provision in the law to strip a natural born citizen, that is someone born in the US, of their citizenship. You cannot, there's no mechanism in the law to take away someone's citizenship if they were born in the country. So regardless of if your parents were documented, not documented, a mixture, it's irrelevant if you were born in the United States. I know that they probably would like to do that. In fact, that was one of Trump's talking points, but unfortunately, that's just not going to happen without an amendment to the Constitution. And when you have Congress that can't agree on what day of the week it is, you're not going to get them to do that. And then also, you wouldn't be able to strip people of their citizenship if they were born within the US. I just wanted to address that. I'm sorry, because that's something I see a lot.
Yeah, and I will, as I see the question coming, I'm also having a tally, so I will let you know, because a lot of people are like coming and going, so sometimes we miss the questions. But back to what's happening in Florida, can maybe you, Priscilla, or you, Sophia, mention or talk very briefly about what's the latest policies there, and something that is also happening in Kansas and Texas?
Yeah. Sure. My parents actually live in Florida, and I grew up in Florida, but I was not born there. So right now, what's going on in Florida is you have a law that was passed that's pretty foul, I guess is the most polite way to put it, against immigrants. So you have several things going on. You have, first of all, hospitals that receive federal funding are required to report and collect information about people's immigration status. And that is something that they're supposed to, if you read the law, they need to give quarterly, I think it's quarterly reports to the government in regards to that. So they are reporting that information to the government. In what form and how detailed it is not super clear, but that's one aspect of it that they're saying, oh, it won't affect your medical treatment, but I think realistically speaking, I don't know how that could really not affect their treatment of people. And then the concern is that if someone is undocumented, that they will not receive medical services the same way that someone who was documented would. You also have a aspect, I've heard a lot about people talking about the aspect of human trafficking. So they were attempting to make it so that more or less if you had someone that was undocumented in your car, or that you reasonably knew, so what the legal term is, that they were undocumented, that you were guilty of human trafficking if they were in your car. However, they're not the final law. It's you're only going to get in trouble for human trafficking if you're moving them across state lines. So if you transported them into Florida and you had a prior conviction for human trafficking, which gets into the kind of weeds of stuff, but there's that. There's definitely also a lot of aspects of the law that are being sensationalized by the Republican Party to scare people. Specifically, I've seen a lot of the human trafficking to where people are under the impression that living with someone that's undocumented could get you put in prison.
Right.
You know, and they're doing that as a means to scare people. Those are like the big things of the bill that are that, and on top of the fact that they're actually they're lumping DACA recipients in with undocumented people, which I mean, it's a deferred action. You have permission to be here. You know, you have a work permit as well with DACA, but they're actually preventing DACA recipients from practicing law in the state of Florida. So starting in 2025, you will no longer, if you're a DACA recipient, your bar license is no longer valid. You can no longer practice law in Florida, and they won't admit any DACA recipients to the bar from that point forward, which is a part that I haven't seen people talk about, but I think is really like, I mean, you have a work permit with DACA, you know, I don't know. I don't know how that doesn't violate people's rights, because you have permission to work and you're
Right.
not letting them practice their profession. Oh,
Yeah, that was a big part in Florida.
yeah, if you are a medium-sized employer, which they're defining that as somebody that employs 25 or more people,
Yeah.
that the state can do basically random audits of your business and see if you comply with E-Verify, and heavily, heavily penalize you if you are employing undocumented people. A lot of the laws, a lot of this law in Florida, they're disproportionately attacking people, in my opinion, at least, that have entered the country without permission versus visa overstays. But we know that there's not like you know, concrete data that I can find, at least. And if someone can find it and can correct me, I'd like to see it. I'm always happy to learn. But from what I understand and from the statistics that we do have, a lot of the people that are in this country that are undocumented actually overstayed a visa. You know, they actually entered lawfully. They were admitted on a visa and they just overstayed it. So I think also it's kind of a little bit of a anti-immigrant rhetoric that the majority of undocumented people here are people that entered illegally.
Right. It really reinforces that idea that when you're an immigrant, especially if you're a Black or brown immigrant, because I don't think this happens to, I don't hear a lot of, this type of rhetoric around immigrants from Europe or
No,
Canada.
because they get their visas
Right.
very easily.
So that's what I'm saying. It's a clear, it's racist. It's also, yeah, and just to give because it just came to me and I need to get it out of my system. But somebody, so I'm from Colombia, and my dad is black and my mom is lighter skin, but we're Colombians, and the city where I'm from, Cali, and para los colombianos, big shout out if you're in the chat, or for the people that have been to Cali in Colombia, you know that Cali is a heavily black community in Colombia, and we are in fact the second largest black Latinos community in Latin America. So people ask me all the time, especially in California, not so much in LA and in New York or in other places, in Miami, for example. But people ask me all the time, they're like, so you're Afro Latina, like why? Like how? And I like explain, my heritage. And I tell them, Black Latinos don't get as much opportunity to come legal. They even have more issues to come legally to this country than lighter skinned, white looking Latinos. So I just wanted to say this because it's like extremely important for us to frame also this immigration conversation around ethnicity and race and like all the other factors that unfortunately play in this struggle for immigrants to even have a path to citizenship, which we don't have. So we have millions of people in the shadows, dealing with a lot of adversity, paying taxes. So I want to make sure that people know that even when you're undocumented, you're also paying taxes. Every time you go to the store, whether you like it or not, you're paying taxes, and a lot of us, like I came to this country when I was 18 years old in the 90s with my family. And the first thing we did was to get a tax ID number because we started paying taxes since then. And sometimes we didn't even get the taxes, back like a lot of people do. So actually immigrants make a tremendous contribution to our economy. And I want people to understand that when you tell like, oh, they're here to take my job, or, they're here to live off the government. When you're undocumented, you don't have a lot of support from the government.
You're
So
actually
can you both
prohibited
talk
from
about this,
receiving
whether
federal
it's in a
funded.
personal level or was it from the law?
You're actually prohibited from receiving anything that's federally funded if you're undocumented. So I
Yeah.
actually hate when people say that they're getting food stamps. It's like they get emergency Medi-Cal in the state of California, which basically means if they have a heart attack, they will probably treat them at the hospital. But they're not getting food stamps. And this misconception that undocumented people get any type of benefits is possibly because they may have US citizen children, and those US citizen children qualify,
Maybe
qualify,
potentially
and
qualify.
maybe the parent has applied for them. And even then, I have many, many clients who they are undocumented. They have US citizen kids. They receive benefits for the kids. They go without. They don't get food stamps for themselves and their kids. They get it for their kids. And they tell me, well, I'm not going to not let my kids eat, and I don't have enough to get groceries for all three of us. So I'm just going to have to make it work with the small amount that I have. So no, just in a word, no, no,
Yeah,
they just
absolutely.
don't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, with the war, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we make a huge dent on the, on the event, the day of action, with the day with no immigrants. I feel like we definitely got that popping. Right. Rhetoric. Mhm. Oh, there are absolutely white supremacists and racist people here. In conversations and collaboration. So, so just to wrap up, I see some beautiful comments from people saying that, congratulations, we did great, with the action and the actions that we're, continue working on. So I wanna end the live stream by asking, what gives you hope, and what gives you hope about this movement? What gives you hope about what's going on right now? And one thing that people can do today to to be part of our movement. So, Sophia, would you like to start? What gives you hope, and what something that people can do?
Are you feeling hopeful?
What gives you hope? No, because
Um,
this is a hard conversation, especially for immigrants. Like, I was an undocumented immigrant. A lot of us have parents that are undocumented. It's hard. So what gives you hope?
honestly, at the risk of sounding super cliche, um, my mom, she's an immigrant from Guatemala. She left during the Civil War. And, people always think that you have to be second generation, that basically, the immigrant parent has to take an L and, they're not, their kids are the ones that can be successful. And I can say affirmatively that, my mom speaks better English than I do.
Wow.
And she's an occupational therapist.
Wow.
And so, you know, despite, and she's a US citizen. So it's like, despite what was stacked against her, it worked out. And I know that that may be an idealistic and optimistic view, and it's hard to maintain, especially when I see what happens to people and I see the system victimizing people over and over again. Um, but it does give me hope that at the end of the day, my mom, who was just, she came here in the 80s fleeing a war. She now has her citizenship. She's an occupational therapist. She's a very successful woman. And
The
like I said,
resilience, the
she,
resilience of immigrants and Latinos. It's just we're like made of something else, because with all of the adversity that we face. I mean, look at you. You're like a success story, in
yeah.
your own right.
And so, people don't have to, you can be successful and not have to wait until your kids get that chance. So I
Right
guess
now.
that's kind of something that gives me hope, and, it makes me happy because I feel like, at some degree it's possible for some people. Um, Also just spreading the word about the fact that, like, there's a lot of applications, not a lot, but there's certain applications that people might be eligible for that they
Uh-huh.
don't even know about, specifically the U visa. If you've been the victim of a certain crime and you've reported to the police, you can get your papers. And
Wow.
just spreading that information, because even though, with trafficking victims, there's a specific type of visa they can get. It's terrible what happened to them. And I don't think anybody would choose to have that happen to them. But it's kind of like, okay, like you said, with the resilience, like, okay, this is what's happened. I have to accept it. We have to move forward. And what can we make that's good out of it? And if you can get a visa and you can get a work permit and a green card and eventual citizenship, like, what's occurred has occurred. Let's do what we can to help you go forward. Um, so that gives me hope, just seeing people, that have been through really terrible things get their green card, get their work permit. That's always super exciting. So what happens? And, the system sometimes works.
All right. Thank you for that. And what about you, Priscilla? What gives you hope, and give people, one thing that they can do to plug in into this movement and continue uplifting, the struggle and the work?
I would say what gives me hope is people power, and I think in a system that where you feel like wasn't designed for you and continues to exploit our Black and Brown communities. I think the power of the people, and my hope is, and this is just me, is that we look outside of the two-party system and really look at a more like a people's millionaires and capitalism. If that makes sense. So I think the power of the people in organizing. Sorry, with my kids outside. The power of organizing and the power of people, right?
Yeah.
We all have our individual political views. And what I appreciate about the coalition is we have a variety of socialists, we have Democrats, we have
People that want to work within the system, people that want to boycott the system.
but I think what brings us together is that even if we may have different political views, we all agree on just basic human rights. And I think when we're focused on those things, then we can really create change amongst our differences and not have to say, well, if you don't think exactly like me, then I don't want to work with you.
Right.
But really that this is going to take all of us working together amongst our differences and finding those things, because I think we all have a lot in common when we focus on what we do have in common and learn to work together. So I think for me, even the way our coalition came together was from just friends and family that we've worked with throughout the years, and where we've had that similar energy. So the
Yeah.
energy of the people that are in this coalition again come from different political views, but we have respect for each other, and we listen to each other, and we are open to new perspectives. And so I think I really appreciate that. And so if
That's what gives you hope.
yeah, so if you can go and follow us at mobilizeforimmigrants.com. We have an Instagram. We're starting our Twitter. We're on TikTok, and then on there you can follow all of the Latino creators as well.
Yeah, and show up to our events. The best part is like when you guys kind of see what we post and stuff, and when you show up and we're like, hey, I saw the event in your page and this is why I'm here. And that is like, to me, that's actually what gives me hope. Like,
And I think even a share or a like, or even if you can't show up, that would be amazing. But there is one in Corona, there is one in Sacramento.
organize your own. Whatever corner in the world you're watching, organize your own. Yeah, we're here to support you.
This type of work gets censored all of the time, so it's very common that a lot of the work doesn't get seen. So hopefully we can, with your support, we can do that. And then reach out to us and let us know if there's anything that you want people to feel supported, you want people to feel like they're part of the community. And with all of our different, talents and interests, and we all bring something different to the table. We're not all the same. We all have our gifts, the things that we're good at. Then we can always reach out to the coalition and say, hey, there's somebody who needs this help. Somebody has, And so I just wanted to say thank you, Sophia, for your time and your expertise. We respect you and the work that you do, and we really appreciate you keep us in check. But making sure we're sharing information, because immigration is so difficult, and we want to make sure that we're sharing
Absolutely.
correct information. And Auda, I also wanted to say, Auda's running for city council for Los Angeles. Yay, which is also, how do we go and work within the system, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your voice to our people, and it might be crazy, but
It's a lot of work.
maybe take a few minutes, Auda, and share a little bit about what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Priscilla. So, to me, to stand here and to share with all of you the fact that I'm running for city council and I'm the first Afro Latina to run for city council in Los Angeles is a testament of all of the work and all of the sacrifice that our ancestors and other people have done for me to be here. The fact that other people opened the doors, the fact that I came to this country and shortly after became an undocumented student, was able to go to school, became a professional, became an organizer, and have been at the forefront of environmental justice issues in Los Angeles. It has not only been a privilege to me, and I'm super proud of that work, but also it's been it's giving me an incredible sense of responsibility, to get to to this place and to be able to say, I'm going to step up and I'm going to make sure that people like us, people like me, have a voice in our government. And, this is the second largest city in the country, and what we do matters, and it takes a lot of weight. And California is the sixth largest economy in the world. So the more folks that we can get that understand our struggle, and it's not just it's not just if you have papers or not, if you're documented or if you have a green card or if you are a citizen, but also what happens when there are programs, local programs, where immigrants are not included. What happens that right now we don't have Medicare for all. We don't have a healthcare for all, and a lot of times people fall into the cracks and they don't get the care that they need. What happens to so many of our moms that are nannies and that maybe clean homes, that maybe are assistants in offices or such. What happened to our street vendors is super important. What happens to small businesses? We're hell of entrepreneurial, like immigrants are like really hustlers, and like we're really proud to start our small businesses and support our local economy and support our community, that way. So it's important for us to support people that have, folks that want to lead and want to be, in government, because then we can be your voice, and we can bring you to that work, in for District 10. Yeah, I'm running for Los Angeles City Council District 10. This Friday is a big deadline, fundraising deadline. And tomorrow no, on Friday, we're going to have a big fundraising party online. So you should all join us at 5:00. Bring your dance shoes, have a glass of wine or a lemonade, whatever you want. Enjoying and supporting whichever way you can. You can donate, whatever you can by Friday, which is our first deadline, or you can, volunteer, and one thing that gave me hope, and just to kind of wrap up this conversation and end it, is all the young people that are standing up to support other immigrants, to support the environment. It's a huge young people in a movement that I'm seeing, and that gives me a lot of hope. Because years ago, when I worked on immigrant rights issues, especially uplifting the having a driver's license to be able to drive in California, a lot of the dreamers step up, and a lot of undocumented folks step up and went and talked to other people that could vote and said, hey, you need to vote for this person. You need to vote for this policy. Show up at this town hall meeting. Stand up, and I think that's what gives me hope. And that's like the power of all the things that we can do. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think at some point we should have like a little meet and greet of sorts with the Mobilize for Immigrants folks in Los Angeles, and everybody will be invited, so you all can come. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you so much, Priscilla, for being here. And we'll be in touch. Please follow Mobilize 4 immigrants.com. Also follow us on social media. Send us love, send us, good vibes, repost what we share, participate. And, no matter what you do, remember that to change everything, it takes everyone. So we're counting on you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Bye-bye.